Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. Today, Alan and I were lucky enough to sit down with Mr. Chris Ruden. He is a professional speaker, a fitness coach, a powerlifter, the host of the Chronically Motivated Project, and he was also on NBC's The Titan Games.
So he has one video that, believe it or not, someone sent me over a year ago. It has 4.4 million views where he talked about revealing his disability. He has on his left hand, he was born with only 2 fingers. It's 4 inches shorter, his left arm is. And he wore a glove for 17 years. And now he overcame that fear to the public. And we talked a lot about that on the podcast. At one point, a girl in middle school that he had a crush on made fun of him. And for the longest time, he was hiding. And now he is his full, unapologetic, authentic self.
Yeah, he went super deep. He was super vulnerable. He talked about his past. He talked about how he got over showing his disability to the world. And he added a tremendous amount of value to you guys. And we hope you enjoy.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. No. Geographically? Geographically. This is cool. So I would say make sure that pretty face is shown.
Yes, true.
They're going to want to see that thing. They're going to want to see that thing, Alan. That face. You good? Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. We have a very special guest today. He was kind enough to reschedule after I dropped the ball last time. Mr. Chris Ruden is a speaker, a fitness coach, a powerlifter who is stronger than Alan and I combined, basically. He's an athlete on NBC's The Titan Games, and he is also the host of the Chronically Motivated Project. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you giving us the chance to sit down and pick your brain. And we were just talking a little bit in the preamble, and it's a whirlwind for you right now. There's a lot going on. And how are you dealing with that right now? How are you dealing with all the pressure and the media?
Right now, the biggest pressure is deciding to eat cheese when I'm lactose intolerant. So that's probably the worst pressure I'm feeling in my stomach. I need to stop eating garbage. Honestly, it's crazy, like to go from trying to build my career and trying to build all these things and to have things finally start to take off, including this new TV show with The Rock. It's awesome to see, but I just can't stop for a second because I know what happens when you let things go and you try and ride on past accomplishments. Even though it's recent, I'm still driving into new endeavors, and I just can't stop. Might be a little bit of an addiction, but I just can't stop for nothing.
No, and you got to keep that momentum up, right? That's
absolutely.
Once it gets rolling, it gets rolling. So I guess we'll jump right into it. One of the first videos Alan and I watched with you was the video where you took your glove off for the first time. And for those who don't know anything about you, pretend they don't know anything, do you mind taking us through that video and why that whole thing was so big for you? And as you said in the video, 17 years overdue?
Absolutely. So I was born with a physical disability. I was born with 2 fingers on my left hand and a shorter left arm. And then at 19, I got type 1 diabetes. So I'm kind of used to getting the health short end of the stick, so to speak. But I got comfortable hiding my disability. I was never ashamed of it until I got into middle school, and specifically at one girl who made fun of me. She was making fun of my hand, and I shoved it in my pocket. And for 17 years, I hid my disability from my parents, from my girlfriend, from myself, and it wasn't until last year, November, that I finally took that glove off. So between that video and the prosthetic week 1, when I got my first prosthetic arm last year, I got over 4.4 million views. And it's crazy to think like that obstacle that really stopped me from doing anything ended up becoming the way, and it ended up like leading me to where I am now. So I'm definitely excited. And that was probably the biggest weight lifted off my shoulders.
What did it feel like? So one thing I really appreciate about you and I resonated highly was in that video, you could see that like that was the realest moment for you. You were super vulnerable.
That was 100% real.
Yeah,
that was
man.
100% real.
And it's like, not many people are willing, never mind to put themselves out there in person, but like in front of millions of people, it's like not many people want to do that, man. So I resonate highly with you for that. And I appreciate how vulnerable you were willing to get, because that emotion moves mountains, right? Like everybody has a struggle. And the fact that you're willing to open up about yours and how you're dealing with it, how you're coping with it, I think that's huge, Chris.
I appreciate that. I, for one, didn't expect millions of people to see it. But my thing was, I've always been an extremist, so I try and apply that to good things. And I figure if I'm going to take my glove off, if I'm going to stop hiding, I'm going to do it to everyone at once instead of just individually like, hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. So I decided to put that video out there, and regardless of what it did, I just wanted to, kind of show the world, even though everyone else already knew. It was me that I was like uncovering myself too. So in reality, everyone's like, well, finally. But to me, that was a big moment.
Dude, the amount of courage that it takes to do something like that. I remember you saying in that video that at one point in middle school, because that girl kind of made fun of you that you had a crush on, you used to freak out that you had your backpack on because you didn't want to take your hand out of your pocket. And so you used to go to the bathroom to take your backpack off. I used to go to the bathroom
to take my backpack off. I used to run a mile or 2 miles when we did PE days with my hand in my pocket. Something I didn't talk about on that video, my first fight ever, I was in a fight and I kept my hand in my pocket the whole time.
No way. Interesting. Yep. So thank you for sharing that, man. I can already tell this is going to be an unbelievable interview. So the amount of courage that it took to take that hand out, and obviously you hadn't known that 4.4 million people would have seen it. If you had known that, maybe
that might have skewed my decision.
Right.
I'm glad I didn't have a future knowledge of what was going to happen.
Exactly, and I try to tell that to my clients. We try to tell that to the listeners. Like, you never know the long-term benefits of overcoming the smallest moments in the moment, like the things that take courage, the everyday things. So, and obviously that was go ahead.
Something I want to mention. For most people, they might think like, what's the biggest benefit? Like, oh, millions of followers and all this stuff. The biggest benefit to me, and a lot of people take this stuff for granted, the biggest benefit is being able to go to Walmart and not have my hand in my pocket or in a glove. It's not going halfway to the mall or to the store or to an event and being like, oh my God, I forgot my glove. I have to turn around. I have to cancel. I can't go to the store. I can't leave my house. That's the biggest benefit for me. And people don't realize how bound I was to hiding. It wasn't just like, oh, I hide to look pretty. It's like, I literally can't function without it. So to me, this is a new life.
Chris, I talk all the time about something I call #FearNoJudgment. And so I saw you on social media recently doing face masks with your girlfriend. And I've literally done that before. And I remember being on Snapchat recording that or whatever. And I think Kevin said I was soft or whatever.
Yes, which he is. Chris, he in fact is soft.
But dude, it's like that's the long-term benefit of those moments of courage. Like
absolutely.
You no longer are put into a box by other people's opinions, because knowing that 4.4 million people saw your biggest insecurity, guess what? Everything else from now on is child's play. So you're kind of free in a sense. So that's huge.
Exactly.
One of the
can also be a problem though, because now I just really don't give a fuck.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
On the flip side, it's like, well, I should probably not go outside naked and grab,
Right. Chris, you're resonating with me so much, because like, dude, I had to reel that in too. When I went so far on the I don't fear judgment thing, I started like doing some really weird things that people
Yeah,
were like
you
questioning.
like validate it in your
Yeah.
head. You're like, yeah, this seems okay.
Yeah, right.
I'm comfortable with myself.
Dude, yeah, exactly. You totally go off the rails.
It's a fine line.
You may or may not get arrested.
Oh, I'm
if
very
you,
familiar.
Yeah.
So yeah. We probably shouldn't hang out.
Right, dude. Yeah, we would have a good time. So one of the questions I have for you is, so I have a bunch of content online, and to be frank, we get better over time, right? Your growth
Absolutely.
mindset, obviously, I've listened to some of your podcasts. You are very growth oriented. You would not have the deadlift that you have if you weren't growth oriented. But I look at some of my old work and I think it's really pretty terrible in comparison to my new work. What is it like knowing that an older video has that kind of exposure? Like, what does that feel like to you?
I mean, for me, I know everything that I'm doing now, I'm going to look back and be like, damn, I used to be such crap, you know? Like you said, we always get better with time. So that moment to me is kind of like a perennial moment where it'll never go away. I don't think it could have been better, because it was so raw and genuine and it was real. I wasn't doing it to try and have awesome production value or trying to hashtag it a certain way so I could optimize the time it's posted so my analytics could, like all that shit was put aside. And it's like, guys, this is what I have. This is what it is. If you like it, cool. If not, this is a huge moment for me. So shut up, like that was my biggest problem in my life. I felt like I was never going to take my glove off. I accomplished so many different things, like 4 state records and 1 world record with the glove still on, so like I went past it. So that elephant in the room, I just moved around it, and it was that moment that I finally like got rid of it. So to me, I don't really care about it. I look back at it and I appreciate it. And now I'm just focused on bettering my impact on other people today and moving forward.
So I think it was episode 1 of your podcast, the Chronically Motivated Project, that you talked about basically you don't really overcome your problems. You overcome your mindset and your relationship with those problems. You said,
Absolutely.
What can't be cured must be endured. Can you go into that for the listeners a little bit, your mindset behind that?
For sure. A lot of times, the problem is not the problem. It's just the way you look at the situation. We tend to associate emotions to happenings. If you break a window, you're like, oh my God, my day sucks. Now my AC is going to go up. My bill's going to go up. My life's going to suck. You just added all these emotions because in reality, the only thing happened was the window broke.
Right.
So instead of trying to fix all these problems, that's almost impossible. Why don't we try and endure them? Why don't we try and think differently about the situation you're at? Like, is it really the worst that you've ever had? You're not getting paid as much as you want. Oh, okay. Well, if you're making more than $10 a day, you're in the top 1% wealthiest people in the world. So maybe if you changed your perspective, you could endure your problem a little bit more than those kids I was just helping in Africa with type 1 diabetes who have to cool their insulin on the top of their house because they have no refrigerators.
My goodness.
So when we really talk about, do you have it that bad? No, you don't. But you do if you convince yourself you do. So the only thing that really needs to be cured is your mindset, not your problems.
So that leads me to an incredible question. So I know that you're super into personal development. You've probably recognized what I'm about to say here, which is we can either change when something bad happens. The only wrong answer is to sit back and remain the same. You can either change your perception or you can change your behavior. Those are really the only 2 things we have full control over. How do you personally dictate so for example, something bad happens and you think it was the result of a behavior or a habit that you'd like to shift versus when you just change your mindset, like you just mentioned? Like, how do you know when to do which?
So I'm definitely not perfect. I practiced stoicism for a while and I really believed it in and out. I loved the philosophy behind being able to change things that you can and not focus on things you can't. For me, it's looking at a situation saying, how can I maximize my impact? How can I maximize my effectiveness around this? And if I can't, what can I do in place of it. So it's always just a series of questions for me. And I do lose my shit sometimes. There are times where I go about a problem ineffectively and people are like, oh, that's not really stoic of you, huh? I'm like, shut your mouth. Like, yeah, I understand. I screwed up there, but people screw up. And that's what makes me different than the Ty Lopez's of the community who just bullshit their way through society. I'm not perfect, dude. But I try and use these principles day in and day out when I'm stressed and when I'm not. So I try and create some consistency so I can solve my issues, so I can help you solve your issues just by helping you think differently.
So you said you went to Africa. It was Uganda, right? You went to Uganda?
Uganda, yes.
What was that like, and how did that come about? I'm very intrigued by that. I actually, before I started working with Alan, I had he's an MMA fighter. His name's Justin Wren. He goes and builds water wells for the pygmies.
Okay, awesome.
In the Congo. So that sort of thing has always really interested me, and it's kind of blown my mind. So how did you get involved with that?
Man, okay, so, I grew up with a disability, so I went from everything from bullying to suicide watch to, drug abuse and a bunch of stuff that a lot of people don't really dig into because they see me now and they think, oh, you must have had it so good. And like, they just don't understand the bottom of the iceberg, It wasn't until I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes that like I completely changed my life. I went from going and being a lawyer to getting a degree in exercise science and going into fitness. If it weren't for type 1 diabetes, I probably wouldn't have made those same choices. And when I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I started speaking in the community, in the diabetic community. Fast forward a few years, now speaking is my main career. That was my dream job, and now I get paid to speak for a living. 2 months before that Uganda trip, the Sonia Nevada Foundation reached out to me, and they're like, hey, my sister died from type 1 diabetes in Uganda. Now I run this foundation to help kids over there. We have 64 kids. We'd love for you to come speak and help out at the camp for a week. And 2 months before I'm supposed to go to an international trip that I had no prep for, I said yes. And it was incredible, eye-opening, impactful, like a life-changing experience to say the least. And just to see what these kids are going through, and they have it 10 times worse than we do, but they're so much happier than we are with minimal things, it made me forget about the Instagram likes. It made me forget about all the things that just aren't really important. And it made me prioritize being a human.
Wow. So what is it? That's the thing, right? So we're kind of on this constant dance between two extremes, like what you just mentioned. And like you experienced that firsthand, right? Seeing someone who has it 10 times worse, but is yet 10 times happier than a lot of the people that you know. What is it like going from that extreme to the extreme of kind of a dream come true phone call from The Rock about your being on the Titan Games? I mean, it must be kind of an emotional roller coaster a little bit and like hard to process all that.
I think the benefit years ago when I first started, I decided to quit my full-time job as a salesman and get into my business. I just quit, and I was following that stoicism, and it's basically, remove the emotion from the situation so you can see things logically. And that really stuck with me. I have a very weird skill of being able to remove emotion. So when I got, invited to the Titan Games, of course I'm excited. That's cool. But I always have this little bit of like skepticism, this little bit of like removal. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But, what happens if I don't win? What happens if this is fake? What happens if the show gets canceled? And I'm like, I control for all the negatives just in case, if your tire goes flat randomly, you're going to be upset. But if every time you get in your car that your tire going flat is an option, you're kind of prepared for it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So controlled pessimism, so to speak. So I kind of operate with that, and people are like, wow, you must be really depressed. I'm like, no, I'm actually really happy. I like preparing for situations. So when I went over there and when I came back, it was like, okay, I need to help them. That's a necessity, even if it's just a logical one. An emotional one, I feel like I would be crushed if I looked at that entire situation emotionally, because what they go through, people can't even fathom, and to come back and order McDonald's or come back and you're driving your car while you're talking on your iPhone and these kids don't even know what Netflix is. It's like, man.
I feel like it's super. So I watched a Simon Sinek talk yesterday, and he basically said all good leaders need two things. They need empathy and they need perspective. And that's kind of, I'm sure you got both of those while you were over there. And it's like, that's something that some people might see in movies, they might see it on a commercial. They'll never see that in person. They'll never understand that struggle. And like the way you're able to reframe your mind, that's one of the beautiful things about what we're able to do through the podcast. We get so many perspectives from different people that it really helps us to like take a step back and be like, is it really that bad? Like, is it really that bad that my $1,000 cell phone is not working well?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Or that Instagram audio is never like
when
you try to share a story post.
I'm so sorry that the portrait mode won't capture your lunch perfectly today. Like, stop.
Right.
So can we talk a little bit about social media? On another one of your episodes, you were talking about how the internet has created a fake sense of reality. And this is something Alan and I talk about. I wrote a song about this recently, and it's like people's profile pictures are them with dog ears or a dog nose. And it's like, that's not what you look like. Like, that's not even what you look like. And people filter their pictures. And, you know, I think it goes deeper than just the picture. That means somewhere deep down inside of you, you probably don't like the way you look, or you're not confident in your image. Can you go into your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I 100% think that's their glove. That's what I hid my hand. That's their glove. That's what they're hiding. I know specifically a girl, and hopefully she doesn't listen to this because she knows I'm talking about her. Specifically, she has the dog ears in every single photo, regardless if she sends an update or anything. It's in every photo, and she just won't let anyone take a picture without it. And I think she looks perfectly fine. She looks like a good-looking person, but it's a mental thing. And social media, to me, like anything that starts off good, is like a bell curve. It starts off great, and then it kind of tops out and then goes bad. So now it's setting such a standard that people have to have smooth faces. They have to have a lot of likes. They buy their likes. They buy their followers. They have to have this social currency to stand up and have weight against their other competitors, which are just other people and friends. But now they're competitors, you know? You see who has more likes, who has a smoother face, who has a better edited photo, you know, who has more comments. It gets addicting. And it's funny because social media is my business. It's my full-time business. But I have to watch from getting sucked in and knowing the line to draw. I know I have to appeal to the audiences, but I also know I can't lose myself in that appeal.
That is the greatest challenge ever for, I think, people trying to develop a personal brand right now. I consistently struggle with that because we're always trying to get to our true north, which is impact. On some level, that's what we're all trying to do, right? Change lives. And if social media is the primary place that has attention, Instagram namely, I often tell my clients, like, beware of Instagram land. I've been saying this a lot lately because it's such crap. So for everyone out there, I've met many of these influencers in person, and this is nothing against them because I know that why they're doing what they're doing. They want to help people too, and they are helping people, but they don't look like that in real life. They just don't.
Absolutely.
I've seen them in person doctoring their photos for sure. I have none of my photos doctored for this reason, but I definitely feel compelled to tell the listeners that, like, here's the thing, right? So as a fitness coach, I think that those filters, it goes deeper than what you just said, and I love what you just said, but I want to piggyback on it for the listeners. Picture if you have makeup and you have filters and you have post-production editing of photos, you're constantly avoiding the feedback. What if you didn't use makeup and hydrated more instead, got better sleep? What if you worked out, right? So what we don't realize is the long-term detriment of pretending we're better than we are. It's self-delusion, and self-delusion in the short term may make you feel better in the moment. But in the long term, if you just cover up with makeup or a dog filter rather than actually hydrating, it's actually detrimental to your physical health. So what is your take on that? And can you give our listeners a little perspective of, like, how you've navigated staying true to yourself in this Instagram land that is just such crap?
I'm gonna ride that out even more. The self-delusion thing I love. What's funny is people participate in self-delusion to avoid doing the hard work of being healthy, but inevitably end up working harder in the self-delusion to avoid the hard work they didn't want to do. So it's like, if you applied that work ethic that you do to hide, you would be so much better doing it the right way.
And then you wouldn't want to hide.
It happens all the time. Oh, dude, it happens all the time. You know, why is it that we drive 2 hours around a parking lot to find the closest spot to walk to get on the treadmill? That doesn't make sense. You know, that makes no sense. The self-delusion on social media is very thick. And in the beginning, it started to get to me because I was like, man, I can't compete with these Gymshark type people who their photos are perfect. They have to hire a camera crew all the time. I don't have that. And then I was like worrying about my metrics. I'm like, oh my God, I have 50,000 or 40,000 or whenever, 30,000, whenever I had that. And I'm not getting as many likes as this girl. Man, people might think my account is fake. And I started worrying. I started stressing out about what other people possibly could think about my social media in relation to me. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing? You know, I'm like, is this real? Is this a real conversation in my head right now?
Right. Yeah.
Like, am I schizo? Like, what is going on? I get verified. I'm like, see, I don't have no fake followers. I'm verified. And then I'm like, who am I proving a point to?
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, like, did I win or did I lose? For me, I want to post my life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the unfiltered. If I want to filter it, cool. If one of my photographers, when I do a photo shoot or something, they make me look super pretty. I'm like, damn, that's not what I look like right now.
Right.
But I always make jokes because like, that's just part of my life. Sometimes I do take nice photos. Sometimes I fart and take gross photos, you know? And that's just, it's real.
You're playing the long game. See, I think that's the biggest difference is
the biggest difference is I'm not playing a game. I'm just being me.
Yeah, that's even better.
When I talk to people, like when I go out to these speaking events, I don't just talk and leave. I make sure that I can stay and talk to the people, whether it's kids or adults, because true impact doesn't come from a stage. True impact comes from when I give you my time, when I show you I'm authentic and you can see in my eyes that I actually care versus trying to get you to, you know, shake hands and take a picture for my social media.
I absolutely love that. How did you get into speaking? Like, what was the catalyst that really made you say, all right, you know what? I have a great message and I think I can be the one to deliver that and really help change lives. Like, when did that really, really pick up?
This is like a two-part story because don't steal this. Do not steal this, okay? For my bank account, my secret question was, what's your dream job? And I put speaker. So I've always wanted to be a speaker. I just never, you know, went after it until a few years ago. I got diagnosed with diabetes and I started adding people on Facebook groups like a stalker. And there was a guy I became friends with. He's like, hey man, I have a nonprofit. Would you like to come out to my nonprofit and speak? We don't have a speaker. I was like, dude, I've never done that before. He's like, you have a great story. I'm like, yeah, but no. Okay. I went out there. I did it. To me, it was atrocious, but everyone loved it. And I took it serious from that moment. So I went to Toastmasters and I learned how to speak. I practiced my craft. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to classes for speaking. Because if you want to join, you know, the NFL, you got to get good at playing football. If you want to get better at a skill, you got to practice. I just didn't think I was, you know, my story is cool, but I didn't think it was good enough to just start talking to people. And then I talked to a professional speaker who was getting paid like 25 grand to talk. And I told him my story. I was like, dude, I have a great story. I need help. He's like, he gave me such good advice. He said, no one gives a fuck. I was just like, excuse me? You don't even know me. I'm like, I would punch you if you're in front of me. He's like, listen to me. We all have the same story. You went through some shit. You got over some shit and more shit's coming. You all have the same story. It's not about your story. No one cares. They only care what you can give them through your story. They care how you can tell your story in a way that's going to give them something. People are inherently selfish, not to be a good or bad thing. They just are. People always want to get something. That's why they're in the audience. They want to get something from you. Education, entertainment, impact, transformation. They want something. So if your story can give that to them, they will love you. If it can't, they'll just clap, feel bad for you, and go home.
So when you step on stage, and I actually want to segue back for a quick second, and then I have that next question, because I want to bring to the listeners something that jumped off the page. You articulated earlier that some people are spending so much time on packaging the product, making the packaging pretty, that the product is detrimental. So I often say that if you're going to chase your dreams, you need two skills. You need personal development to make yourself more valuable, and then you need to make sure the right people see that value. So I wanted to really bring that to the listeners because I think you articulated
Absolutely.
that in such a great way. Stop spending so much time on the packaging and don't forget about the product, right? Like if you're spending
social media makes that work. So if we tie that even back, you think about supplements, Explosion 5000, like
right.
what?
Oh yeah.
You got it because it looks like a Pokemon card, and
right?
because it says the word explosion on it, and it just, you don't even care if it was like powdered shit in there.
Right.
You would eat it. Like it, and that's we forget about the value, which is in the contents, not the presentation. So I like how you said that.
Oh, thank you, man. I resonated so strongly when you said that.
Can I touch on that real
Yeah,
quick?
please do.
My roommate and best friend, I live with him. We were looking up pre-workouts yesterday, and it's like nightmare, mayhem,
Oh, yeah.
chaos,
Yeah, right.
axe murder.
Yeah.
So
One is like sidewalk cracker and cocaine. I'm like, that's not cocaine.
Yeah.
Like what? It's almost as expensive as cocaine, but that's definitely not cocaine.
Dude, it's so fascinating to me. I once said that Great Value is the only product that's not focused on packaging, and even them, that's their packaging.
Exactly.
The fact that they're
It's
not.
literally like
That's their marketing.
The minimalism
Yeah.
is their marketing.
Exactly, man. It's so interesting. So yeah, for the listeners, personal development is working on yourself, like the true product, and marketing in like the makeup and the filters and the clothes you wear. Like that's important too, but it's not as important. It needs to come second, not first. The other question.
People comes to me all the time, dude. I had a call with a guy. He's like, "Hey man, I want to be a speaker." I was like, "Great. How many times have you practiced speaking?" He's like, "0." I was like, "How many videos of yourself have you given talking?" 0. Have you written a speech? No. Have you gone to any classes? No. What made you want to be a speaker? Well, I wanna tell my story. I was like, "Okay, did you practice telling your story?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, do you see where this is going?"
Dude, I love that you asked the right questions with that. It's what are you doing, right? I've given speeches alone in my driveway. Like people would have looked at me like I was a homeless crazy dude.
It's just like do your part. The big Tony Robbins said it. The biggest resource you have is being resourceful. I don't care if you're poor, if you're Asian, black, if you're disabled, if you have diabetes. You have a resource, and that's just Googling some stuff. You can go to the library for free and Google it. You can find a way. There's people like me, I'm sure people like you, who would be willing to help. Anyone who reaches out to me like, "Hey, I need help," I'll give you everything you need. I will give you 100% if you give me 100%. If you give me 99%, I won't give you shit.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, man. That's exactly how I treat my fitness clients. Like, what are we doing to get to the output, inputs and outputs? What's the output we want, and then what are the inputs that we're doing in terms of sleep, hydration, nutrition,
100%,
training, and
100%.
mobility? I love
It's
it,
funny
man.
how those inputs get very skewed. We'll do 100% input in 2 areas and then 30% input in 7.
Right?
And
Yeah. Oh, dude, resonating so strongly. So
Right? This is great.
This is.
I'm enjoying this, Chris. This is great.
well, good. I'm all hyped up. I'm gonna have to go work out again. 'Cause I'm,
Yeah.
super hyped
Did
now.
you take your pre-workout
Sidewalk
before this?
crack?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
sidewalk crack.
3000.com. Boom.
Right, exactly. Does it have a picture of an alien on the front of it?
100%.
Yeah, of course, because that's how you're gonna remember it. But so dude, I love this, man. We're all focused more on the product than the packaging. Both are important, but the product first. That's awesome. So I had a question for you to kind of go back to the speaking thing. When you are on stage, you said, what are you giving them? What are they getting out of this? So my favorite TED Talk of all time is Tony Robbins' TED Talk. I actually listened to it today and I almost cried because when people get the chance to experience giving and really experience it rather than just thinking about it, they get hooked. And so you obviously have experienced that from the stage when you got invited. You got to give the audience something. So when you step on stage, what are you looking to give them?
I want them to empathetically put themselves in my shoes. I want them to see me and go from the kid who knew he was worthless, the kid who Googled disabled and found the synonyms like weak and broken and useless and helpless. I want them to see that kid and be that person and transform while I'm on stage. I want them to walk through like I did and come to the realization that we do the best with what we got where we're at. There are no limits except for the ones we accept for ourselves. And, if you're willing to put in the work, you can adapt and be not like someone else, but be the only you and make that as successful as you're willing to work for.
Chris, do you think that your disability drove you to, like, you're strong as hell. You'd be strong no matter what. But do you think it gave you like an extra push, like kind of like an underdog thing?
This is where I need people to really be selfish. Okay, selfish has such a bad connotation, but it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. You don't start building a building from the 52nd floor down. You know, you start with yourself, and for you to be selfless, you have to be selfish first. So, did my disability push me? No, my disability is just my disability. My reaction to my disability pushed me. My choices. Now, my reaction to my disability wasn't always the same. It was pretty terrible in the beginning, but in finding out, in being true to myself and knowing how I was letting it affect me, I changed and I made better choices. So I think we need to be a little bit more true to ourselves and understand that it's not the bad situations we're in that are the problem. It's the way we think about them and what we do thereafter. You know, I give people advice all the time. You know, they said, oh, this person hurt me. This person broke my heart. This person did this. No one can hurt you without your permission.
I think one of the myths, we live in an interesting time when a lot of us are kind of excusing away our own behavior. And the interesting part about that is, like, let's say you're broke and your bank account and you're spending a bunch of money. Like, the time when you want to look at your bank account the least is the time you need to the most. The time when you want to step on the scale the least is the time you need to the most. Like,
I love that.
We just have to stop avoiding feedback. Like, whether it's a filter on Instagram or, like, dude, okay, so I'm 24 photo shoots in as a male model. At one point that was just a dream, and now I actually am a model. So that's awesome. That's great. But I'm not going to lie, when you step in front of that camera, all self-delusion is gone. The camera adds weight, man. You can think you're yoked. You are not, man. You
Especially
are not.
when it's not your friend
Yeah.
taking the pictures.
Right, exactly. I literally am just like, is that seriously me? Like, it's like that, you know, back in the day when you were in high school or college or whatever, and you just were a little too close to the camera. You didn't realize you were letting yourself go, and you're just like, oh my God, is that me?
And you want to get mad at the photographer, like, why'd you make me look like that?
Why did you post that on Facebook? Yeah,
like,
well, why were you being obnoxious? Yeah, exactly.
I got a whole bunch of pictures on my laptop that are not going to see the light of day. I can tell you that much.
I think everyone does. That'll always be, you know, the case. But something I did want to mention, being real with yourself, and especially with the photo shoots and stuff, there's that challenge going around right now on Facebook, you know, that 10-year challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
If you notice, everyone looks better now than they did before.
Yeah.
So that's the people that are willing to post it, right?
No, what I'm saying is no one is willing to say that they got worse. They're only willing to say they got better.
Interesting.
I saw one girl post that I think she just didn't know what she was doing, but she posted like obviously she gained a lot of weight. She wasn't happy. You know, Facebook's kind of like her diary. And I was like, okay, she clearly knows that things have gotten worse and she needs to, you know, kind of get herself together. Everyone else puts it in a light that's like, I'm better. Even if I know they're not, they refuse to put themselves out in reality. You know, they use Facebook to validate their delusion.
So this is the thing that this episode is absolute fire. So for the listeners, like, the neuroscience behind this, okay, your central nervous system associates pain with eventual death. So our cognitive biases in our brain are deluding us into thinking we are better than we are so that we avoid pain. But the problem is that pain is there to change either your perception or your behavior. In a lot of cases, it's your behavior. So for example, if you're sleeping like crap and drinking 4 coffees a day and not hydrating and you're not working out or exercising, and you look like crap in a photograph, you can ignore looking at that photo, or you can doctor it up and filter it up, or you can change your habits so that you don't need to doctor the photo. That's really what we're talking about here. So, and this happens to all of us. And this is why I'm so big on numbers. And Chris, I'm sorry, I'm kind of like just dumping all of this on our listeners.
No, dude, I love this stuff. I feel like I should be taking notes.
Dude, I love it. So for the listeners, and this is what I always do with my clients, and I want to bring this to the listeners since I can't be a one-on-one coach for all of you. When it comes to fitness and life, we all are telling ourselves a story. That story is usually telling us one of two extremes. It's either telling us that we suck and we're not good enough and we can't do anything, and that's one extreme that's super not powerful. The other extreme is the story of we're awesome, we're awesome, we're awesome. So we are all telling ourselves a story. This is why I'm so big on numbers as an electrical and computer engineer, as a mathematics guy. Like, numbers are everything. Your brain will lie to you, but numbers never lie. Are you hydrating? Are you going to the gym? Are you sleeping 7 hours a night, 8 hours, whatever it is? Because if the answer is no, then you need to start measuring those things and then correlating, okay, that's the real reason I don't look good in this photo. That's the real reason I don't feel good about myself. That's the real reason why I have to buy all these perfectly fit clothes and constantly cover everything up with makeup. When in reality, what you should do is go into your room completely naked by yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. No perfect lighting, no perfect filters, none of that. Just look and say, am I proud of my body? Because the truth is, all that matters is what you think about yourself. And if you're deluding yourself into thinking that you think you're better than you are, that's going to stop you from taking action. And if you think you're worse than you are, that's also going to be a disempowering place. So I felt compelled to say that.
Well, even piggybacking on that, Chris, you get client pictures and you're friends with bodybuilders, I'm sure. I won a bodybuilding competition. I was the leanest I'd ever been. And I really started to like connect the way I looked to my self-worth. So I remember I was the least happy ever. I was depressed. I was suicidal. And then a year later, I put up a throwback Thursday of when I was yoked. And then it's like, what the fuck are you doing this for? Like, you know how miserable you were, you know? So even on the other side of the coin, it's like, it's both ends. It's both ends of the spectrum on that. It
both
really
extremes.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is, like, we can call society and try and blame it on so many things, but in reality, who connected their self-worth to their image?
Me.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's what it is. Like, I do the same thing, and people do it all the time. It's the individual responsible for their emotions. So, you know, people are like, oh, well, it's easier said than done. So is getting up and going to work every single day, but you still do it, you know? You know, we talk about things that need to be done, like your mental health, which is a huge stigma with guys. That's a whole nother topic. But, you know, I ask, is mental health or mindset or personal development necessity? And people say no. I was like, okay, let's play this game. Do you guys have a job? Do you have a job? Yeah. Do you need to work?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You could be homeless. You could lose everything you own and be homeless.
Interesting. Yeah.
So if you have the ability to turn a desire into a necessity, you can do that with anything in life.
Interesting. So this is the thing, and this is turning into a very awesome conversation. So I've used to say this to people, and I kind of use this with my clients a lot because they get to kind of see the very behind the scenes Alan. And what I say is this. It's very accepted by society that I go to school for 4 years to study engineering if I'm going to be an engineer. Why is it that it's not wildly accepted in society that if I want to be an engineer, go study engineering. If I want to be successful, why is it not known that I must go study success? Like, I really want to know, like, what is your take on that? It blows my mind.
Societal standards, you know, it's arbitrary. It's not real. You know, my parents they weren't against me, but they didn't necessarily support me in saying, hey, I'm going to work from social media and do all this stuff. They're like, yeah, we have real jobs. So, you know, you should get a real job. Be safe. I grew up poor as hell, like super poor, going to the church to get food poor. So, you know, when they see me now, they're like, oh, we're so proud of you. But it really is, I just broke off from the herd and I knew what I wanted. My definition of success, I kept that, you know, I never let it go and I fought for it. But I fully believe that whatever you feel is successful, you should chase, regardless of what society says is appropriate or not.
I'm loving where this conversation is going because the one thing I like about you, Chris, is you have tough love and you're willing to say things that a lot of people aren't. And that's, Alan and I are very similar.
I care about my people so much, whether it's my clients, the people who I work with, the people I speak to, you know, kids, anything like that. I care about them so much. I don't let people give themselves shit, but at the same time, I'll walk you through that process. I'm not going to say, you know, shut the fuck up and do it. I'm not going to be like a Gary Vee and just curse at you and stuff.
Yeah, right.
I truly want to help. You know, I really do want to help. And sometimes I come across as a tough love stuff, but in reality, I want you to see the steps you can take to fix what's going on so you can live a better life, so the people around you can live a better life,
I
so
love it.
you can actually experience quality of life. And if it requires a few F-bombs, I'm going to let them fly.
Well, see, it's like the biggest thing that I learned when I got into coaching and when I got into podcasting and people were reaching out is so many people are not happy in their relationship. And it's almost like it's that delusion, because once you admit you're not happy, then you have to do something. Then or you just pretend like you never said it. And it's like almost every single person I know has had a horror story when it comes to relationships. I guess that's par for the course now, but it's like I know so many people that stay in relationships because they're just afraid to be alone.
Absolutely.
Can you go into what are your thoughts on that? I know you did an episode on that.
For sure. So I think people are afraid of the unknown. They're so comfortable that they like to ride it out, and they cause more misery in being comfortable than they do exploring. The desire of exploring is there, but the fear of failure and the risk of not getting the reward they want is too much. It's too daunting. They fill their head with ideas of what ifs and never actually do anything. So they're in that, purgatory of a state where it's not good enough, but it's also not bad enough to change. So they just kind of die there, and it happens a lot with relationships because there's this Disneyfication, something I call it the Disneyfication of soulmates, where they're like, oh, this is the one true girl I'm only ever going to be with in my life. And if this doesn't work, I'm doomed. Well, guess what? If that was true, your soulmate could have got hit by a bus when she was 3. You're never going to meet her. And that means you're destined to be alone the rest of your life. That's not true. You didn't meet your soulmate 3 minutes from where you grew up. There's millions and millions of people in the world, So it's like people convince themselves that life is over because of a job that didn't work out or a relationship that didn't work out. I'm not saying you can't love the person or love the job. I'm just saying that your life goes on regardless of what happens, whether you make good choices or bad choices, your life goes on. And if it doesn't, you don't have to worry anymore. So in reality, you have to make the decisions to improve your quality of life. That's the goal, not just longevity, but quality of life. So when you ask yourself, is this the highest quality of life that I could be living right now? If the answer is not yes, then it is up to you to start making those choices and decisions and behavior changes and perspective shifts to get that quality of life back.
Chris, so you are huge on taking responsibility, and it really seems like all entitlement has been stripped of you. That's one of the things that jumps off the page with you, is just like, whether it's the fact that you were born with a quote-unquote disability or the fact that you grew up poor, one of the things that happens to a lot of us growing up in America in particular, but anywhere that's very well off compared to the rest of the world, is I feel like we have a very strong entitlement factor. So Kevin and I, without digging too deep, the listeners already know this, had a less than ideal childhood. We'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
Grew up without fathers, et cetera, et cetera. I also had free lunch growing up. I was very, very poor. And so I feel like one of my strengths is that I don't feel entitled to almost anything. I want to earn everything. So how did that become a part of you, and how can we help others realize that the biggest thing holding you back is the fact that you think you deserve something rather than wanting to work for it?
I think just ingraining in myself that I hate to say this because, I saw my parents struggle so hard. My mom worked 16-hour shifts and she just didn't get paid like she should. And my dad went through a lot of crazy struggles and just the money wasn't coming in. I just knew what life I didn't want. It sounds terrible, but really, I know what I didn't want out of life, and I knew what I did want out of life. So I figured if I plant enough seeds, if I plant 1,000,000 seeds, maybe one will grow, maybe one. So I kind of got that, again, going back to that controlled pessimism, or that, realistic, what can I say? Realistic cynicism, so to speak. Keep going, constantly plant seeds, constantly push in the direction you want to head in your life. And when something grows, cultivate it. And if it dies, keep sowing seeds. Keep going, keep going, keep going, like nonstop. You just constantly keep walking forward on that road towards that ideal life you have. And you give every seed that grows 100% of your intention. And if it grows to where you need it to be, cool, keep moving. If it doesn't, cool, keep moving. Just keep fucking going, and don't accept failure in that you just stop moving. You have to constantly strive for the life you want. And that's either going to come from you settling with less, which is completely fine. I know it sounds terrible, but it's not. If you have gratitude for what you have, replace your grievances with gratitude. I talked about that's a great way to be happy right now and in the moment. I practice that a lot. But you also have to strive for more if that's what you want.
Chris, that's amazing advice, man. That was amazing advice. Absolutely amazing. I'm very excited to ask you this question. We recently had Evan Carmichael on. He wrote a book called Your One Word, and my one word is resilience. Alan's is legacy. If I was to ask you what one word sums you up, means the most to you, is closest to your identity, what would you say that is?
Limitless.
Limitless. Hell yes. I love that.
Unfortunately, I just went to the Bradley Cooper movie in my mind, but still. Damn associations. No, that's honestly awesome. Do you have another question?
No, you can hammer.
So one other thing that I wanted to ask you, and this is a very question that I'm very curious about just in general. Also, I want to ask you how much time you have. Do you have a hard stop? Because we're coming up on...
You're good to go. You're good to go.
Okay, beautiful. So I noticed this, and I think you probably have noticed this too. So you don't get to, a world record deadlift without being growth oriented, okay? So obviously personal development is like a huge, important core value of you. You wouldn't be who you are today. And it's weird because, the whole world is seeing the polished product. Not the whole world, but anyone who sees you now is seeing the polished product. They're not seeing the dude who didn't feel good enough, who wasn't, who he is today. So personal development is what brought you to who you are today. Why is it, in your perspective, your belief system, your philosophy, that people aren't sold on personal development? Because it blows my mind. But I also know that at one point I wasn't sold.
I think I ended up selling myself in selling personal training. So when I got out of college, I graduated with a degree in exercise science. I started selling personal training, and I would use these logical pitches that I came up with that just made sense to me, and I said, a year from now is going to be a year from now, no matter what. You're either going to look back and say, I'm so glad I started a year ago, or I wish I would have started a year ago. Time waits for no one. So I said that so many times. I'm like, damn, that's so true. Like, if I don't start now with everything I want to do, in 5 years, 10 years, I'm going to be 10 years behind. So why not just start now and keep going? So if it does work, I'm in a place to thrive. And if it doesn't work, I just keep putting in more time anyways. To me, it just made sense. I operate off logic a lot. That's what drives me. So when something makes sense to me, I just do it. Especially when you add in the whole world seems like it's falling on you. Like, okay, I'm disabled. I have an autoimmune disease. Didn't grow up, wealthy. I don't have anything coming to save me. What can I do with where I'm at? And I just went after it,
One of the videos I watched with you, Chris, was motivation is a trap. And when I first saw that, I was like, interesting. I wonder how this video is going to go. But with your mindset, it makes total sense. Why it's like, if you're not motivated on a day, it doesn't mean you don't get to do anything, especially if you have responsibilities, especially if you have things you need to do, right? So
absolutely.
What does that mean to you? What is motivation is a trap? Like, where did that come from for you?
Because I have people who I'm sure you guys get this if you're a personal trainer listening, or even if you're a person who works out. People say, I'm just not motivated. I'm motivated some days, but a lot of times I'm just not motivated. How do you stay so motivated? It's not about motivation. Asking someone how they stay motivated is the wrong question. The real question is, how do you develop the discipline to do the stuff you need to do, even when you don't feel like doing it? Motivation and discipline are completely different. Motivation is luck. Motivation is by happenstance, by chance. You might happen to wake up and feel motivated that day, or you might not. I don't like that. I don't like leaving my quality of life, leaving my potential success, leaving the impact I could have on that kid. I don't want to leave that up to chance if I'm motivated that day or not. I'm just going to do what needs to be done to make sure that my life gets fulfilled and the people around me do too. So I can't wait to be motivated. I can't say, oh, if I'm not motivated, then I'm not going to do this. No. Like, motivation comes after action. Once you go to the gym for the first day, the first week, the first year, you're going to feel a lot more motivated, So people think motivation comes before action, but it doesn't. It comes after.
So one of the quotes that I always go back to, and I learned this, a leadership quote, a long, long time ago. I forget who said it, but he said, "Stop trying to feel your way into action. Instead, act your way into feeling."
That's great. That's awesome.
Thank you, brother. Again, it's not my quote. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I came up with that myself.
Right on the top.
No worries. You're the one who told it to me. So
amen, amen. I'm going to see a meme on your Instagram, Alan Lazarus. No. So the thing is instead of feeling your way into action, when you don't feel like it, to quote Joe Rogan right now, I'll never forget when he said this. Joe Rogan, he said, if I only went to the gym when I felt motivated, I'd be a fat fuck. And it's literally like, so I love that you use the word discipline. As a matter of fact, I was going to ask Kevin, we just started a new series called Small Talk, and we pick one word and we go off on it for 10 minutes. And we just kind of like really, it's actually for like that spark, that catalyst for people. But and I was going to ask him if we could do discipline as one of the future ones.
Of course.
So for the listeners, Chris mentioned discipline. And the thing about discipline that I think people forget about is that discipline, the definition is predicated on the fact that you don't want to do it. It wouldn't be discipline. It wouldn't require discipline if you want to do it. And so one of the other myths, I think, in our current culture with this entrepreneurial revolution happening is that you only do things that you love. Now, I agree. You have to love it. But this is the problem. People associate that I only love something when I always want to do it. I always say this. You don't know you love something because you always want to do it. You know you love it because you're always glad you did.
Yep.
And I think that that's absolutely critical for people to understand, because I think a lot of people are dabblers. They're trying something, they're like, oh, well, I just don't love it. I'm not motivated. It's like, if I had a nickel for every time I didn't want to go to the gym and force myself to go, I'd be rich.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, I wouldn't be rich. I'd have like a $1.25. But that's what I want to ask you. What does self-discipline mean to you in your life? Because, again, everyone's seeing the polished product, but what's behind the curtain?
So I did want to touch on something you said. You know, a lot of people think they want things that they don't. They fall in love with the idea, not the process. That's a huge issue. So a lot of people would say they'd want a yacht, right? You know, if I would give you a yacht, everyone's like, yeah, I'll take that. That's awesome. I'm gonna take so many awesome filtered pictures on that yacht. And in reality, they don't think about driving that yacht out of the port and not hitting someone. Now you're driving like, wow, you're stuck behind the yacht the whole time. Like, wow, this wasn't exactly what it was worked up to be, you know, on Instagram. They don't realize the process that goes behind the idea or the image. So when people see me, you know, I book a talk and get X amount of money for a talk, or I get flown all over the place. They see the fanciness, but I always try and remind them, like, guys, this is exhausting, you know. It's a lot of work. So behind the scenes, to develop discipline, people will see my bio, or they'll look up what I do and like, oh, he's a speaker. Or they'll dig a little deeper, like, oh, he's a speaker and he has some clients. But what they don't realize is that, yeah, I might be a speaker. I speak. I do a lot of events, you know, that pay very well. I do a lot of events for free. I go on social media. I have clients for nutrition, clients for training, clients that are diabetic, contest prep. I have a website that runs different memberships. I write different ebooks. I write for 6 different publications right now. Sometimes I get paid to do business consulting. Sometimes I get paid to do influencer marketing. You know, sometimes I'm on a panel. I can go for days and days the ways I make money and do these revenue streams to make my life realistic. So they don't realize how hectic it is and what kind of work it takes. They just see, oh, he's a speaker. Oh, he was on that TV show.
Right.
That's something we talk about all the time. It's almost like nobody will ever know. Like nobody will ever know unless.
And I don't care.
Right.
I don't care if they know.
Right.
Know?
You kind of can't.
The biggest moot point is like, well, you just don't understand. Like if you're in an argument with someone and they say you don't understand, it's over.
Right.
Because no one will ever understand, because they're not you.
Right.
They don't process things the same way. They don't perceive things the same way. To say you don't understand is to say, hey, I'm kind of dumb. Let's end this conversation. That's really what that means, because you can't do anything from there. You can try and make me understand, or at least see what you see in my point. But if you just say you don't understand, it's over.
But that's the narrative bias. So for the listeners right now, I'm going to bring something very, very real to the table. So what is the world record deadlift that you have?
655 pounds.
Okay. So for the listeners right now, if you've never deadlifted before, you have no effing idea what that took. Okay? and honestly, Kevin and I have never even come close to that, and we can only fathom. And this is the reason why I'm saying this is not to be like, oh, listeners, you have no idea. No, it's because whenever you see a result, a polished product, remember that we have no clue what it really took. This is why I'm such a big fan of biographies. If you read Total Recall by Arnold Schwarzenegger, my unbelievably true life story, you're going to see what was behind the shiny object. And it's unreasonable self-discipline, unreasonable work ethic. The dude worked out 5 hours a day. So a lot of us see like, oh, it must be nice. No, you don't know how not nice that was.
See, I mean, that when I try and give people perspective, especially like adults who don't really work out or understand, you know, I have a residual limb. I have technically 2 fingers, but I'm missing most of the bones in my wrist and hand, which classify it as not a hand. And then my elbow is not joined properly, so I can't supinate and pronate, meaning internally and externally rotate my arm. And it's about 4 inches shorter. So anytime I deadlift over 500 pounds, I bleed because of the pressure that the wrap that I'm using around my wrist causes blood to come out of my fingertips in my residual limb. Anything over 600 pounds, I have to spray skin tack on my skin, and the wrap attaches to the skin, and up to like around 640-ish, the skin starts to peel away. So the upper layer of skin comes off, and it's a pretty bad scar. And that's any time I lift pretty heavy. So that's what it takes. You know, how are you okay with that? Well, because my goal and what I see myself doing is bigger than that temporary discomfort. Motivation has sex appeal. Discipline doesn't.
Well, that's a quote right there to live by.
Right.
You're blowing me away, Chris. This is great. I'm thoroughly enjoying this, man.
Dude, I'm not even reading anything. This is crazy. It's just I'm opening my mouth and stuff's coming out. That doesn't,
dude, it makes sense.
End my career. That's nice.
It helps, right?
Right. It makes sense, man. You've done a lot of prep work, like in life. You know, you're putting in the reps. I
just believe all the shit that comes out of my mouth. That's the point. Like I genuinely believe. I'm not putting on an act. Honestly, the way I talk, it sucks because when Gary Vee came out, I'm like, damn, I curse like him and people are going to think I'm copying him. I'm like, damn it. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just me, you know? I actually haven't done a podcast in a long time, low key, because you guys are the first people to hear this and everyone else listening. When they reached out to me for the show with The Rock, the producers were like, hey, we love you, but you cursed a lot. So can you hide some of your podcast?
Oh man,
so I was
interesting.
Like, yeah. I mean, it was to get on the show, you know. So I eventually got on the show. Now I can publish all those motherfuckers. So yeah, I'm getting back to that, which is cool, and I definitely miss it. You know, I look back on some of my podcasts, I'm like, damn, I'm a little monotone. In my head, I was more excited. You know, just like we talked about in the beginning of this podcast, you get better with time, and my speaking has improved to me because I've taken it seriously. So I hope to bring value, like you guys bring value to your listeners.
Chris, I really appreciate you. You've said so many things on this podcast that you know you've never said before. Thank you so much. And also, like, just you're very much living, breathing proof. I think you give people hope, man. You give people hope because take it from me, man. I mean, I'm deadlifting 3 plates earlier today, and it's a struggle for me. And to see you doing more than double that, it's just like, my goodness. Like, it motivates me. And it inspires me, more importantly, and I know that
really
inspires other people.
You know?
Man.
I appreciate it, and it's still weird for me to hear because to me, I'm just like doing my thing. You know, I've always been disabled. You know, not disabled, but differently abled. You know, like I just have to do things a little bit differently, and I stuck it out. So, I appreciate that. I really genuinely appreciate that, and I hope someone out there appreciates the same way. You know?
Oh, they definitely do. I'm setting the intention now that we have to meet up eventually and get a lift in. That's
absolutely
that's just gotta happen. So we'll ask our final 2 questions, and we'll let you plug away everything. So this is a question that I ask every guest we have, and I'm very interested and intrigued to hear your answer. So we're given this life, we're given this time on this earth, and we get to kind of choose what we want to do with it, right? What do you hope to accomplish with the time you've been given? What do you want to accomplish before you die?
I want to just continue speaking on a bigger scale, and I want to get people to think more like how we've been talking all throughout this podcast. I want them to understand that they're in control of a lot more than they think they do, pretty much their whole life. And once people started taking responsibility for their life, I feel like the world would be a different place.
Amen to that, man. That is a great answer. I often say, happy, healthy, productive people that are chasing their dreams don't want to hurt anyone else. All the
Yeah,
bullies out
absolutely.
there, real leadership is supporting others. And when you're happy, healthy, and productive, you're not insecure and you're not trying to hurt others. So that's just such a great answer. That was profound.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So the last question that I always ask the guests, and I'm also extremely intrigued to hear your response. So I wear a chain around my neck. Some might call it a necklace.
Yeah, some would.
Some might. Soft. But it has the North Star on it. And the North Star never moves. It's unwavering. It's the brightest star in the sky. It's a guide. And I often say that I want to be the brightest star that shines so bright that it can be seen from the darkest places, especially when someone's really having a hard time and they can reach out and get helped by me. So I believe we grow, we evolve. You're into personal development. You're obviously always changing, right? Because you can't grow without changing. But I believe there's something deeper about us that never changed. So what about you, through all of this growth and personal development, has stayed constant? What has never changed?
I think just my innate desire to help other people. I know it sounds kind of cliche, but even when I was little, I always wanted to help people. Like, I didn't have a hand and I'm trying to help a kid learn how to shoot a basketball. Like, I might not be perfect at that time, but it always made me feel good to help other people. And I think that just complements the speaking and everything I'm doing today. I want to give people that value, and whether it's in fitness or if I were to get out of fitness, that concept will be with me for the rest of my life.
Amen, brother.
You've definitely helped us. You've definitely added a tremendous amount of value. And if our listeners want to find more about you, where can they find you? Website? Where can they book you for speaking, coaching, all that happy jazz?
Absolutely. So my website is chrisruden.com, and all my social medias are at Chris Ruden or /Chris Ruden. So pretty simple to find me. Putting out a bunch of videos on YouTube lately, and Instagram is one of my main modes of social media. I'm starting a new thing in the fitness realm for me, which is called the Daily Lean Challenge. So it kind of keeps people accountable. The workouts disappear after a day. So it's like kind of keeps it exciting. Technically we can do the same workouts over and over and over, and it still works because things have never changed. But to keep people excited in today's convenience and like you have to have fun or else people quit, I'm trying to make things around people's lifestyle so they don't quit on themselves, so they realize their potential and get in the rut of like being successful, not the rut of being depressed and unhappy. So I found a way to like make that a lot more affordable. Instead of charging thousands of dollars to work with me, people pay less than $20. So that's coming out soon. And then for speaking, people just book me through chris@chrisruden.com to shoot me an email. I do huge events, conferences, upwards of, thousands of people. And then I do events that just have 10 people. I don't care, because as long as I impact one person, that one person could be the wake that changes the rest of society.
Amen, man. I aspire to speak on stage with you one day as a speaker, as a fellow speaker. This is going to
Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen.
And
man.
I aspire to be humbled heavily by watching you work out.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
all good. I've been eating extra donuts lately, so I'll probably see you and be like, wow, I'm just going to go kill myself.
Dude, I had 3 earlier today before my workout.
Chris, I got one right next to me. As a matter of fact.
That's awesome.
Bodybuilder
I could beat you
problems.
with that.
Yeah.
I got a tattoo of a donut on my leg. Let's
Oh
go.
yeah, you win. You
Just,
win.
just so you know, Kevin hit 405 for a double today on deadlift.
Not bad, but I'm working my way up, man. I'm working my way up.
Hell yeah, dude. It starts there. I remember the first time I went to deadlift 135 and I couldn't because of my hand, and to be at 7 plates, like, that's insane.
Yeah, man.
It is insane. My back might snap. Yeah.
Oh,
But
my
I'm
back
aesthetic,
has
though,
snapped
for
3
sure.
times. So you're good.
All right, so ladies and gents, Chris is the man, clearly. This has been
this has
an
been fun.
amazing talk. Chris, you added so much value. I know the listener's going to take stuff away, and it's like this was probably one of the most legit just conversations we've had. Just it flowed. Everybody added their value. It was great.
Yeah, we broed out a little bit. Thank you
did.
for doing that with us.
Absolutely. And that comes from good questions, good podcasters. So you guys are doing great. And anyone listening, make sure you guys understand the value these guys are giving you. They're doing this for you guys. So give them topics, give them things they need to do to continue to inspire and impact people, because they're doing an amazing thing here.
Oh, thank you, Chris. We
Yeah,
really
that
appreciate that.
That means
man.
the world to us, brother.
Yes, it does.
That's $30, guys. Thanks.
Yeah.
Just send over your bank account info so I can steal it, and we'll be fine.
No
take
worries. I'll
Venmo?
just add
No.
you to my. No, I'll add you guys to my premium Snapchat.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Oh, this has been fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chris Ruden.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.